Okay, so here we are with another example to try to spot the functional dependencies. This is a more business type of scenario as opposed to the colors and shapes that we were talking about earlier. So here we have a product table with a product ID, description, movement, and price. This is some kind of store that sells clocks. So when you're looking for functional dependencies, always start in the obvious place, which would be the first column on the left, and see if you can find one there. So if I say to you, what is the description of the product ID that has the number 1234? We look up 1234, we see it's the Alpine Chalet clock, we see that it's an 8-day musical, and it's $799. There are no other items that have a product ID of 1234. So you can say that if I give you a product ID, a number of a product ID, you can without a doubt look up that product ID and tell me the description, the movement, and the price of that item. Okay. Again, we'll just test it on another one just to be sure. If I say, what is the product ID 9012, you can see that that is the Bavarian Lodge clock. It's also an 8-day musical. It's $799. So the same would hold true with any one of these. And again, as I said in the last video, when you see unique values in a column top to bottom, no duplicates, that's a huge tip-off that you have a functional dependency there. So let's write this one out. Okay, so let's move onward. Let's look at this description column. If I said to you, what is the product ID on the Alpine Chalet clock? Could you tell me without a doubt, 100%, what that product ID is? Yes, you can. It's 1234. If I say, what about the Black Forest clock? What is the product ID on that one? Well, we look up Black Forest in the description column, we move over to the product ID, and you can tell me without a doubt, 100%, that that product ID is 5678. Okay, the same would hold true for any one of these clocks. Okay, if I say, what is the movement on the Alpine Chalet clock? You can tell me it's an 8-day musical. No questions asked. Same thing with the price. So we have another functional dependency here where, the one column will reliably determine all other columns, and not coincidentally, if we look top to bottom, we see unique values. There is no description for an item that is repeated anywhere in this table. So we will also say that description determines the product ID, the movement, and the price. Okay, so let's move on to the movement. We do not have unique values in this column. You see 8-day musical appears twice, the 1-day musical appears twice, quartz appears twice, so these are not unique. You may be tempted to write it off and say, okay, no functional dependency there, but even though there are no unique, even though the column values are not unique, does not mean that a functional dependency does not exist, so we need to be careful. Let's look at this. If I say, what kind of clock, meaning what is the description of the 8-day musical, the 8-day musical movement. If I look at the 8-day musical, I see that is the Alpine Chalet. Is it always the Alpine Chalet? If it were, then we'd have a functional dependency possibly. So let's check. 8-day musical, Bavarian Lodge. So no, we don't have a functional dependency there. Same would hold true if we looked at the product ID. It's different for both of the 8-day musicals. Okay, what about the price? If I say, what's the price on the 8-day musical? $7.99 for this one, the Alpine Chalet. What about the other one? $7.99. Okay, so we may be on to something here. Let's test the other ones. We have the 1-day musical. What is the price there? $499.99. Let's look at the other one. $499.99. Okay, how about the quartz, just for good measure here? We have this quartz, $299. And when you know it, the second quartz is also $299. So we could say according to this table, that the movement determines the price. Okay, so just because you don't have unique values does not mean that a functional dependency does not exist. So you have to go through it and be systematic about it and see if you can find some. Now, you could also have said, if movement determines the price, you can also say that price determines movement, does it not? If I say, look up the value $799, what kind of movement is that? You're always going to get the 8-day musical. Same thing with $499.99. You always get the 1-day musical. So, you could also type this if you were working on an assignment or something. You don't have to. Really, just one is fine. As long as you have it going the one way, and if the reverse of it happens to be true, it isn't always. The reverse of it is not always true. Often it is, but not always. Just once is enough. And typically you're going to work left to right, so you'll probably end up with something like this. But again, I wouldn't fault you if you listed it going both ways, but save yourself the trouble and just if you got it going one way, then call it good.